When we think shoulder training, we generally think of overhead presses, lateral raises, and very focused deltoid moves. But one other move guys often throw into their shoulder training is something called the barbell shrug. Now this is an exercise that's going to target your upper traps, the muscles that essentially lie between your neck and your actual shoulder joint. And if you're a meathead, you know this move well, because in addition to building your upper traps, it's also a great ego stroke. It is not an exercise that everybody needs to do, and one of the questions you should ask yourself is, do you actually need to do it? Let's break all of that down and understand how to do the barbell shrug right now. Now the shrug seems simple, and in many ways it is. You're just shrugging your shoulders. In the process though, you're going to work your traps, but if done correctly, you're gonna get two underrated things out of this exercise too. First off, you're going to challenge your forearms, especially if you're doing your shrugs without wraps or straps. The second thing that's gonna happen, because this is a very small range of motion, and in general, we're gonna wind up going very heavy with this exercise, you get to acclimate your body to a heavy load, to just holding that heavy load. And there's underrated carryover in that that's gonna translate to exercises like your rack pulls and even your deadlifts. Now, is this a move that everybody needs to do? Absolutely not. And that's doubly true if you have shoulder issues, because the shrugs are training a muscle that's pulling your shoulder blades upwards. That is not something that we really want to reinforce. In fact, from a longevity standpoint, we want to reinforce the exact opposite idea and pull our shoulder blades downwards into something called scapular depression. All that said, if you are dying to do this move because you really want to move something heavy over a small range of motion, or you really just want to grow your traps, here's how you get it done. So we've got Brett here to help us demo the barbell shrug, and he doesn't have his straps, he doesn't have his lifting belt, so we're not gonna do 7 plates here. We've got 1 plate on each side. It's enough that we can get some load on here, and we can give you this real quick demo. Normally, when you do this shrug too, we're going to turn towards the rack. It's generally better to do your exercises turn towards the rack, but because we want you to be able to see Brett's upper body, and we want you to be able to see most of the action that's happening in the shrug, we're gonna do the shrug facing out. We are gonna wanna pay attention to our setup, and essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a very small rack pull to get ourselves set up. So he's gonna get his knees nice and close to the bar as if he was about to deadlift it. His butt is pushed back. He's essentially hinged back, ready to pick this up. He's gonna do one more thing for me. He's got a shoulder width grip with his hands. He wants to think about turning the pits of his elbows forward. That's gonna turn on his lats. That's a nice, safe way to pick up the bar, and it's also gonna set him up for success in the shrug. From there, he's gonna take a deep inhale. All he's gonna do then, he's going to stand up and squeeze his glutes. Now he's set up for the shrug. Now, we've made a point to turn the pits of our elbows forward. He's gonna think about driving his pinkies. We wanna think about this principle called breaking the bar, which we wind up doing on our bench presses, on our deadlifts. We're gonna do it on the shrug too. So he's gonna think about driving his pinkies together and essentially breaking the bar as hard as he can. From here, the shrug winds up being pretty simple, but we wanna pay attention to a couple things. All Brett's gonna do, he's going to shrug his shoulders up, but he doesn't want to lean forward. He wants to make sure he's standing as straight up as he can when he's doing this. He's gonna shrug up, hold for 1 second, and then he comes down. When he is coming down, he wants to let the weight stretch him out. The traps are not a large muscle group. They don't have a ton of range of motion, but we want to maximize that range of motion. On the bottom here, Brett is gonna think about squeezing his lats and driving his shoulder blades down. That way he gets that maximum range of motion we can work our traps to. So let's go up again, Brett. 1-2 seconds, get as high as you can, then go down nice and slow, get that really good stretch, and repeat that. That is your basic shrug, and that's how we want to see you do it every time. What we want to avoid is letting this turn into like a combination rack pull, deadlift, shrug thing. Essentially what we're gonna see very often, you're gonna either see very quick reps like this, which again we want to avoid, or you're gonna see people lean forward a little bit and then drive up from that position because they're trying to do too much weight. They want to go through this really big range of motion, so they wind up having to use their hips. Those are the 2 things you want to avoid in the shrug. Let's give them one more good crack at this, Brett. So he's gonna break the bar, stand up and squeeze his glutes. It's up, it's 1-2 counts, that maximum contraction of the traps, get a really good stretch, and then come back up again. And that is the ideal way to get the barbell shrug done. So that is the barbell shrug. And as I have said multiple times in this video, no, it is not a necessary move, but it can be a fun one. And if you are badly in search of big traps, it is a solid option. Now, I would rank this overall behind dumbbell shrugs and kettlebell shrugs, simply because if we use those other implements, we're not gonna have to break the bar as aggressively, and we're gonna have a lot more of a friendly angle to work with overall so that we can attack our traps. The upside of the barbell shrug though is that more than those other moves, we can really load this aggressively and go crazy heavy, and again we get that cool ego stroke. However, if you use it, this is not a lead move in any of your workouts. Instead, we're thinking about making this the very last exercise that we do on back day or on shoulder day, after we've done more critical, larger range of motion moves like our shoulder presses, our heavy dumbbell rows, or our lat pull downs. Then you get to the barbell shrug, and you can think of doing this for 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. We want to make sure that we're going heavy on this, but we still want to keep things high rep because your traps are an incredibly strong muscle that is meant to be pushed hard. So if you are really searching for mountainous traps, then yes, you want to get the shrug in your workouts. It is not an exercise that you need to do, but it is fun to do every so often because it is always fun to pick up heavy things.